Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and these are your sun and rising sign horoscopes for the month of January 2020. Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you're having a good one. In this video, we're going to take a look at all of the earth signs. We're going to go Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo. Timestamps are in the comments if you want to jump ahead to the portion of the video that focuses on your sun or rising sign. I recommend looking at your rising sign because that's going to match up with your whole sign birth chart. I find that to be the most useful. You can, of course, look at your sun sign as well. All right, let's start with Capricorn, and we'll go ahead and dive in. This is a huge month if you're a Capricorn sun or rising, because you have arguably the biggest transits of the entire year happening in your home sign and home first house of Capricorn. Starting at around the very beginning of the month, oops, excuse me. Somehow we jumped to Taurus. There we go. Where at the very beginning of the month, you're going to see Mercury and Jupiter getting together into a conjunction, which is nice. Nice energy there. But the really big news is that between the 10th and the 13th, check out what happens. Get to the 10th, and there's a lunar eclipse in your 7th house in the sign of Cancer. Between the 10th and the 13th, you're then going to see Mercury, the Sun, Saturn, and Pluto all come into a quadruple conjunction together in the span of those 3 days, along with the Mercury cazimi at the heart of the Sun. So what is the simplest way of breaking all this down? Because it's just a boatload of transits happening between the very beginning of the month with Mercury and Jupiter, all the way through the 13th of the month with the lunar eclipse, and then this huge quadruple conjunction, which astrologers have been writing about for like a decade. Well, the simplest thing we can say is that if you're a Capricorn sun or rising, first of all, the first house has to do with health, self, and identity. So you can basically you can just be getting rocked right now in terms of who you are and what your sense of reality is. Just basic astrology 101. Who am I? What do I feel like my sense of purpose or direction is? That's the first house. And with this quadruple conjunction, Saturn-Pluto conjunction, there's a theme of death and rebirth, of looking very deeply and with a very sober, mature, kind of adult perspective at who you are, at where you are, and at needing to make changes. It's kind of a funny one because the first house is a place of inceptions, birth, and beginnings. So something is getting started right now, but it might be coming through an intensely contractive moment. It's very personal for you. The simplest thing to say is, this is like if you play with the tarot, this would be like flipping the death card or the tower card, or a combination of the two, where it's like endings and structures being completely dismantled in order for something to be reborn or something to be initiated. This could also form the backbone of a new position, a new title, a new identity that you're stepping into in life right now, but it represents a kind of death and rebirth. So that's the simplest explanation. It's a time of beginnings, but it comes through this intense transformation that is with Saturn and Pluto that often is painful and contractive. It's like birthing. It's like literally like birthing something new in some ways. So on the other hand, on the 10th, you have the lunar eclipse in Cancer in the 7th house, and that's focused on your relationships. That's the house of relationships, also a house of endings. So you could also see things happening with your partner, or if you're in a relationship with a partner or a loved one, and their life, their health, their career path. Big things shifting over there, either for them or for the relationship itself. You might be meeting somebody new, getting out of a relationship. The relationship house is really emphasized. The other thing that can happen is that beginnings and endings in general around family, with the moon eclipsing in Cancer, and the idea of family and tradition. Also, questions about family karma and marriage karma. Those are up for review right now, and also just the general sense of needing to look at one's emotional needs and the emotional needs of those that you love, and whether they're being addressed or not, as well as needing to make sober, serious choices that are adult that may need to leave out childish or immature emotional demands. that are placed upon you, or that you are needing to let go of within yourself. So that's the main dynamic of the month, and it's kicking. And you've got 2 more eclipses, June 21st, July 5th, in the same 2 houses. So this is ongoing, but you're going to experience it really pretty dynamically here in the month of January. So when we go on from there, there is the next major transit of the month that I have on my list for Capricorns this month is the last quarter moon in Libra, which appears between the 16th and the 17th. And that is going to take place for Capricorns. The moon will be in your 10th house of career. There may be a serious crossroads and some really difficult choices that you're having to make, or a wise judgment is really important around the workplace and this kind of transformation that's occurring. So, it's a moment of really sort of weighing options and having to make the difficult but mature choice. Probably towards the 16th and 17th, it'll touch on your career somehow, or the career area of your life, or even just your sense of calling or purpose. It'll be engaged with that area much more intensely. Of course, the scales imply the judgment, the need for a judgment call of some kind. Then between the 17th and the 23rd, we're seeing 2 transits in the sign of Aquarius, and those transits both going through early Aquarius and making a square to Uranus in the sign of Taurus. These are financial changes that are probably happening, with the Sun and Mercury going into the house of finances, money, and resources, and squaring unpredictable, erratic, but revolutionary Uranus. Investing in something new, buying or selling something new, unexpected expenses that come up, but also the potential for some kind of creative breakthrough that has, business potential, or it could be lucrative. So watch for that between the 17th and the 23rd. Then finally, around the 27th to the 28th, you're going to see Venus and Neptune getting into a square with Mars in Sagittarius. And so this energy towards the end of the month, between your 3rd and 12th house, it's a really romantic, kind of a romantic aura around this one. It also has a lot to do with siblings or neighbors or communication. But you have to be really careful around this time of things that are that tempt you, because the Mars in the 12th house can be a little self-destructive. Venus and Neptune can be very alluring. So alluring and self-destructive, yeah, be careful of those kinds of temptations toward the very end of the month. But otherwise, this is also about, basically kind of doing an evaluation of which voice is the angel on my shoulder and which one's the devil. Because the 12th house, again, can be really destructive with Mars in there. Venus and Neptune can be very auspicious and generous, but Neptune's sometimes a little delusional. So when you put a planet with Neptune, we can become delusional anyway. It's not that Neptune's delusional. So you just want to be careful, because everything that looks bad may not be. It may be actually a good, and everything that looks good may not be. It may actually be where your goods can be bads and your bads can be goods. And the demon and the angel might be cross-dressing on either shoulder. So you may not recognize them. Like, one may appear in the guise of an angel and be a devil, and vice versa. So the Mars-Venus square can also bring about sexual tension and creative tension in general around that time. And you may notice it especially in your environment, or in the kind of mental or emotional states that you're seeing around that time. That's the end of the month. So let's go forward now to the sign of Taurus. Whoops. We're going to go back to the start of the month for Taurus and take a look at, again, remembering that there's a couple of Capricornian events right at the beginning of the month. Here we go. Here's Taurus. And that's going to be Mercury and Jupiter the first couple of days of January. And then by the time you get up to the 10th through the 13th, that's when the 3rd house, 9th house axis is getting completely lit up by a lunar eclipse in Cancer in the 3rd house on the 10th, followed by this massive stellium conjunction of the Sun, Mercury, Saturn, and Pluto all together in Capricorn in the 9th house. What does that mean? It means the topic of religion, beliefs, spirituality, long journeys is becoming really important right now. It suggests a deep death and rebirth, or some kind of deeper transformation around your faith and beliefs, around things like academics, religion, even astrology. You're looking at the potential for there to be some need to let go of a structure or a system, or there is some need for a very mature, adult, sobering perspective on something. You're changing your mind philosophically, mentally, and emotionally. You're growing up in some way. This may also be caused because of traumatic, unexpected, or challenging events within the family, and differing beliefs or ideas in the family, with a lunar eclipse in Cancer in your third house. Also, challenges around siblings that come up. But overall, with everything happening in the ninth house, the emphasis this month is on the higher mind, religion, spirituality, maybe foreign countries, and some degree of transformation that's happening there. And also, again, the potential for family dynamics or family karma around the topic of beliefs, ideas, communication, etc., or maybe even the topic of siblings. You're going to have to make the difficult, mature, necessary choices this month, or insights and realizations may be coming to you this month that are painful or challenging in some way. So that's what we're seeing with this big quadruple conjunction of planets in Capricorn. Come January 10th through the 13th. The eclipses are going to repeat in June and July in the same two houses. So this idea of the revolution of the mind stuff and your spiritual path is very, very strong right now for Tauruses. So a little contraction with that, a little the pain and the death that come with Saturn and Pluto is very real. There's oftentimes a choice you have to make that's hard, or an insight or a realization that's hard earned, something like that. Okay, so potential to take some big growing up steps though around your spiritual path this month, or to even, like I said earlier, like learning something in any walk of life, but maybe committing to a learning process of some kind. That's also potential. Now, when we go forward from here, we are looking at around the 16th and 17th of the month. Right around that time, we have a last quarter moon in the sign of Libra. And the last quarter moon in the sign of Libra is falling in the 6th house, which is the house of misfortune, not an easy house for a last quarter moon. But it's also a house that has to do with work and self-sacrifice, and to a certain extent, service. The last quarter moon here is it's about making a tough judgment call, with the moon in the sign of Libra squaring Saturn, making wise choices, having to come to difficult conclusions, but also making the choice to be in service to someone or something, or heeding the call to do something that you're being called to do, or even just the general idea of having to go through some degree of pain, sickness, or loss, but it's somehow a necessary part of a maturing understanding, an understanding that's developing this month that is truly wise. It's like there's, in the ninth house, it's kind of like you're getting your stripes this month somehow. You're leveling up a little bit in terms of your understanding of yourself and reality, but it's hard won, and probably some difficulties that come up. And again, maybe with the last quarter moon in Libra, some difficult choices that have to be made. So then we go forward to the 17th through the 23rd. And during this time, let me back this up. During this time, we see, where am I? Mercury and the Sun will have moved into Aquarius in your 10th house of career, and will square Uranus in your first house. This is a moment where there's a lot of, through this period from the 17th to the 23rd, there's a lot of light bulbs going off. There's a lot of epiphanies. You might be saying things or doing things that are more dramatic, rebellious, defiant, original, creative, innovative, and you may be having to break free of something that you feel is overly rigid or conservative. This comes right on the heels of the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in the ninth house. So You have to be careful that you're not being overly zealous and just starting to get, starting to take risks or become too forceful about something that you're feeling or really passionate about, that you're believing really strongly. Or you have to be careful that, in needing to make a change and break away from something that's too conservative or rigid, you're not being destructive along the way. This could especially be present around your career and the need to kind of assert yourself in the world in a different or new way with Uranus in your first house. Finally, between the 26th and the 28th, we see Venus getting into a conjunction with Neptune in Pisces and moving through a square to Mars in Sagittarius. So you got Venus-Mars square, Mars square Neptune, Venus conjoined Neptune. This is a really good time to evaluate your ideals, beliefs, values within the context of groups that you belong to, or friendships or community that you belong to. Those are 11th house topics. There may be some degree of creative or sexual tension within groups that you belong to. You may be falling in love with or meeting someone or something like that as well within a kind of a professional or social circle of some kind. You could also see the potential for there to be value conflicts within groups that you belong to, and also just some degree of tension with friends right now, maybe related to your beliefs. This is par for the course this month, which so much emphasis on the 9th house of beliefs and the heavy energy that's focused there right now. So that's what I've got for you for the month, Taurus. Let's back up and start again for Virgo. Excuse me, I'm still getting over a cold. Oops. Where are we? Okay, here we go. So, where do we go? Oh, here's Virgo. Okay, so for Virgos, the stellium of Capricorn energy is coming in your 5th house. That was traditionally the house of Venus, the joy of Venus, and the house that was called good fortune. Generally speaking, this house has to do with anything that is about pleasure or fun or joy or recreation, even sexuality to a certain extent, or romance, childbirth, or not childbirth, but pregnancy and children, all 5th house topics. First thing that can be said is that, first you got Mercury and Jupiter right around the 3rd of the month, and then you're going to move it forward to about the 10th. And we see the lunar eclipse in, lunar eclipse in Cancer right around the 10th, followed by the quadruple conjunction of Sun Cazimi with the Sun Mercury Cazimi, and then Saturn Pluto conjunction between the 10th and the 13th. So this is your 11th house and 5th house axis. And what we're talking about in the 5th house with so much Capricornian energy there is an evaluation of pleasure. Quite simply, if you're doing anything to excess because, of the need to satisfy or gratify your senses, and it's harming you, this is going to be a month of sobering up, or very heavy, deep, mature realizations around where you're going too far with something. On the other hand, it could be that the topics of pleasure and hedonism in your environment, in your family, in your home, are of great importance. The reason for that is that this is the Capricorn Cancer axis. We've got a lunar eclipse in Cancer in the 11th house. It has a lot to do with where we feel we're at home, who do we consider our family, our tribe, groups of people. The lunar eclipse in the 11th house suggests a lot of changes around groups and family dynamics within social circles, or again, where is our culture? Who are our people? Where do I consider myself to? Who are my allies? That's what I should say. So these things are changing pretty intensely right now because there's a lunar eclipse in that house. It also brings up family karma around our social life, or family karma and our cultural orientation, or even our religious or spiritual orientation to a certain extent. Now, the Capricornian planets in the 5th house are pulling in the direction of, again, where do I find pleasure? What do I do to have fun? Excuse me. Nice Christmas cold. The fifth house is always asking us the question, are you happy? Are you, do you have joy in your life? Venus, the sort of goddess associated with this house, is a goddess of pleasure and recreation and fun. Anything that's enjoyable, delightful, peaceful, happy, also sexual, romantic, and potentially lusty. So there's a lot of deep contractive. It's a weird thing to have a bunch of Capricorn energy in your fifth house, right? In a certain way, if you're Virgo sun, Virgo rising, you may have a complicated relationship with pleasure. You may go to extremes sometimes and then be really repressed at other times. That's part of what earth signs can deal with in general. But there's some deep changes and transformation coming into your life this month with regard to either children or pregnancy, which would be really practical topics, or your relationship to pleasure, romance, and happiness. And some really sobering, deep transformations happening around these things. At the same time that questions about groups, loyalty, family, and friends are being called into question. So those are the two areas getting really highlighted by these, monumental transits that are happening this month. Then you go 16th to the 17th. We have a last quarter moon in Libra that may emphasize the topic of finances for you, and maybe some weightier decisions around money or finances that are being made. That comes right around the 16th or 17th. Between right around the 13th, actually, of the month, Venus will enter your seventh house of love and relationships, which might be nice. It might be that there are good people entering your life. A silver lining this month might be the area of romance, especially considering the heavier energy coming through Capricorn. So it's a kind of a nice thing to see that the goddess is exalted in your seventh house of relationships this month. That could be, you might really enjoy that. And it may also put good people in your life. If you're suffering through anything, the right people might find you, give you some help. So the 17th through the 23rd, we see a series of transits from Aquarius. The Sun and Mercury in early Aquarius will come in from the 17th to 23rd and square Uranus in the ninth house. That's the house of beliefs and spirituality and religion. Sun, Mercury, square Uranus often gives a lot of insights and epiphanies. You may be having a lot of insights or epiphanies into things that you've been struggling with, and a list of homework. Here's what you can do to come to a solution. You may have to work to do it, but the insights or inspiration to get clear from things that have been blocking you or you've been feeling hindered by likely will come through between the 17th to the 23rd. Uranus is a liberator, so this is a good transit, but might have some work that you have to do, some homework to make necessary changes. Finally, between the 26th and the 28th, we see Venus and Neptune coming into a conjunction as Venus squares Mars, Mars squares Neptune. So this is a Venus-Mars dynamic that can bring creative, sexual, erotic tension into relationships, conflicts around beliefs and ideals in relationships. This can also highlight, because we have so much with Venus in the seventh house of relationships, but Mars in the fourth house can also emphasize some degree of conflict around home, family, or property that's coming up as the month unfolds. So that is where things stand. It's a very busy, packed first month of the year. I hope you all have a very good new year, and look forward to being with you throughout the year ahead. We'll be back in February for your next horoscope, and you stay tuned all month long for updates on all the transits of the month and see how they're affecting you. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.